Hoosier Nation, the time is here, folks. Game week is upon us, and I don't know if you can understate just how big it is for Tom Allen and his tenure for the Indiana football program to get that nasty stench out of their mouth and out of the air with a crisp, clean, convincing conference win over old rival Illinois. That's not a rivalry game. Indiana, Illinois, Friday night. We're going to dive into this week one matchup, give you our thoughts on a win-loss record for this 2022 Indiana football team, and so much more here on episode 260 of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for IU sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday night, August 30th, 2022. I'm your host, Nathan Krishnan. Here with me tonight is my normal co-host, Matt Lukens. Matt, before we dive into this matchup, we're about to get rocking and rolling. Week 0 in the rearview mirror, but I mean, come on. We're going to have almost every one of the 120-odd FBS teams in action. Let's get ready to roll.
I'm excited. I can't wait to watch it all. It'll be Sunday football for me over here.
Great.
So it'll be nice. I feel like NFL season, which is not too far away either now. So very excited for that. IU obviously plays on Friday night, which will be Saturday morning for me. It's also very nice. I get to get up and watch the one game and then probably go back to sleep and chill out. One of my last weekends in Japan. So very excited. So yeah, but I mean, like, look, football season starting. I know we haven't been the most hype when it comes to our football team. Doesn't mean I'm any less excited to see IU athletics back.
Oh, absolutely.
School's back in swing and volleyball started up. And I could use some weekend entertainment. So I'm glad that IU football is back. I'm sure I won't be saying that about 6 weeks from now when we're 1-5.
Hey. How dare you?
But I am excited nonetheless to see what this team could possibly bring to my life.
I want to see Indiana get a little frisky this year. Give me some good September vibes, and then we'll deal with the rest of the schedule when we get there. Let's get to it, folks. It's a long-standing Big Ten matchup. It's Indiana and Illinois. I mean, that's what Big Ten football is all about until Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers, Nebraska, USC, and UCLA. But this is a big contest, and it's a nail-biter projection. Illinois, already 1-0 on the season, comes to Indiana for a Friday night season opener for the Hoosiers at 8 p.m. Eastern on FS1. The game will be called by a really good crew. If you ask me, Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman, they'll be easy to digest as you're watching the game if you're not there in person. Indiana, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, is a 3-point favorite with an over-under at 45. That means the odds makers are projecting something like a 24-21 final score. Friday night should be clear, should be comfortable. At least that's the projection right now for Bloomington, Indiana. The last head-to-head matchup between these two teams came in 2017. Indiana actually riding a 3-game win streak against the Illini going into Friday's game. Fun fact, Indiana has only played 4 teams in college football more frequently than Illinois. Those 4 teams are Purdue, Ohio State, and maybe a little bit surprising to some of you, Northwestern and Iowa are the 4 other teams that Indiana has played more than the Illinois Fighting Illini. When you look at Illinois, they're coming off a pretty uneventful 38-6 win over Wyoming. Illinois was only about a 13-point favorite going into that game. They overwhelmed the Cowboys with offensive line play and a strong running game led by Chase Brown, who's a name you need to know if you don't already. He wears number 2 for Illinois. Ran for over 100 yards against Wyoming, made it look easy. He took the bull by the horns. In the very first quarter, on the very first drive for Illinois, they prioritized getting him the football on the ground and through the air. He finished with 151 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns rushing against Wyoming, but he also chipped in 16 receiving yards on 3 catches and a touchdown receiving. Someone who can really attack you in a number of different ways. Their left tackle is really good, Alex Palczewski. They got a really good safety as well in Sidney Brown, but one injury already for the Illini, pretty significant one too. You would think that in a comfortable win over Wyoming, things came out pretty clean, but their second running back, and I'm not even going to call him a backup, really it's a second running back in Josh McCray. He picked up an injury against Wyoming. McCray was someone who ran for 150 some odd yards against Penn State and Purdue on the road last year. Not available for Illinois this Friday night, according to their head coach, Brett Bielema. Matt, look, Illinois does have a transfer quarterback coming in from Syracuse and Tommy DeVito. But first things first, the Illini have a run-heavy offense, and Chase Brown is the guy that Indiana's got to have a target on going into this matchup.
Absolutely. I mean, I like to be cheesy every once in a while, and Illinois is, what can Brown do for you? They're big UPS fans on both sides of the ball.
On both of them.
Chase Brown and then Brown, their safety. Sydney, whose name escapes me, but now has somehow been spoken into existence. Look, they play exactly how a Brett Bielema team would play.
Exactly.
They stop the pass. They run the ball down your throat with a big, chunky offensive line, and they have just figured out that the forward pass is an invention. So when we are watching them in Bloomington on Friday night for you guys, we will see an Indiana defense be tested for the first time this season, obviously, but especially the linebackers. The defensive line and the linebackers are going to have to win the battle in the trenches against Illinois if we're going to have any shot at winning this game. I don't have a ton of confidence in our offense because I haven't seen anything. There's nothing to be confident in, right? New offensive coordinator, new quarterback, partially new offensive line, wide receivers coming back from injury, some wide receivers transitioning from quarterback, and a new running back. It's almost an entirely new offense. So we can't really guarantee a win based off of an entirely new offense. However, if defense plays well, that's when we'll know whether we win the game or not. So something to look out for is on the first drive in this game, does IU win the battle in the trenches? Remember, we said this might be the best, most deep defensive line IU has had in quite a while. The secondary is really good. The linebacking core has some questions, especially since we just lost Micah McFadden. That was my alarm to get up that I set this morning. It was supposed to be 7 a.m. and it's now 9 a.m. going off. Thank you. But look, with the loss of Michael McFadden, can we because we're not going to make up his absence, right, Nathan?
No,
he's not going to be replaced.
Not with one guy, especially.
Not with one guy. He can be replaced by committee, through a bunch of different guys making up his statistics. So who's going to step up in the first game and do that? Now, I like James Head Jr. I think he's a really good linebacker. And he's a guy that really thrives in stopping the run. So he might be a guy that you look at to maybe stand out in the first game. But yeah, if Illinois can establish the run, it's going to be a long game for the Hoosiers.
Yeah.
And good news is the good news is, Nathan, I won't worry about them passing the ball at all because they are terrible, and our secondary is 1,000 times better than Wyoming's.
Yeah, if there's one matchup you can feel confident in going into this game, remember Indiana secondary for the first time in a long time is as healthy as it gets, right? I mean, you're going to have, unless some news breaks between now and Friday night, you're going to have that collection of Taiwan Mullen and Jalen Williams and Monster Matthews in that secondary against an Illinois receiving core that arguably is the worst in the conference. Isaiah Williams can play a little bit, but by and large, this is a receiving core that's pretty underwhelming. If you look at Tommy DeVito, Illinois' incoming quarterback, who was at Syracuse last year, he threw the ball 37 times against Wyoming for 194 yards. It's really difficult in this day and age to throw the ball that frequently at about 5 yards an attempt, as long as you're not playing a walk-on. And maybe you can argue that Illinois was holding some stuff for Indiana and then Virginia coming up in the following week. Maybe you can argue that Wyoming's coverage was sagging off quite a bit, and they were, to be fair. But even under those circumstances, it's pretty tough to throw the ball at about 5 yards per attempt when you're throwing it that much. So when I look at this matchup, you're absolutely right, Matt. It is going to be a full-on effort to keep Chase Brown under control. They've got a couple other players who can cause problems. Talked about Isaiah Williams in the receiving game. Reggie Love is another player that could break off a big run. He's probably going to be leaned on a little bit more in Josh McCray's absence. But that defensive line core, and who exactly is part of that core is still to be determined. But we're going to be talking about James Head, J.H. Tevis, DeMarcus Elliott, Big CO. Get to know the name Ladarius Cox, who's number 91 in an Indiana uniform. Get to know Miles Jackson, who's normally a pass rusher, but his athleticism will be helpful in stopping some of those Chase Brown or Reggie Love runs. These are the guys that you really need to get familiar with as far as an Indiana standpoint. It might be for the only time all year, but this is the kind of game where James Head Jr. or CO or Bo Robbins, for example, who, of course, is the highly touted prospect from a couple of years ago, one of those games where one of those guys, J.H. Tevis, DeMarcus Elliott, they can end up being player of the game for Indiana, okay? I mean, you may not even pay attention to that notion starting in week 2 against Idaho, but for this first game, having those girthy run stuffers put Illinois in 2nd and 8, in 3rd and 7, keeping them under pressure, and then forcing Tommy DeVito to really try stretching the field, that's going to be the way Indiana finds a victory in this contest. Now, on the other side of the ball, Indiana privately has decided their QB1, but publicly it will be a coin flip until, at earliest, warm-ups on Friday night around 6:30, 7 o'clock at Memorial Stadium, or at latest when the Hoosiers take their first drive against the Fighting Illini. I thought it was interesting that in Indiana's game notes this week for Illinois that the school released, there was no depth chart included, not even one that says Tuttle or Bazelak. This is something that Indiana has done consistently over the last few years since we've been on the Indiana HQB, where in the game notes each week, they usually include a depth chart. Not the case this week. Indiana's up to their tricks going into the season opener. It's either Connor Bazelak, the incoming transfer from Mizzou, who had a really good 2020, SEC co-freshman of the year on offense, good start to 2021, and then fell off at the end of 2021, or the seasoned veteran Jack Tuttle. Matt, if you ask me today, I'm not really sure. I feel like if Indiana was really confident in one of these two guys, they would pretty much say it comfortably. If you were in charge of this decision, who would you go with against the Illinois team that is better in defending the passing game than they are the running game?
I think they've been pretty clear with who going to be starting. Actually, it's not, they haven't said it outright, but I would bet a lot of money it's Bazelak. You don't bring in a guy with the amount of minutes he had starting in an SEC school and showed what he showed on tape. He showed a lot more than Tuttle, and he's younger than Tuttle. That guy's going to start. It's a new offense, anyways, so it's not like Tuttle's coming in and has a heads up on him, anyways, on the playbook. And to be honest, the only reason they're not announcing Bazelak is so that Illinois has to study Tuttle. It's a little bit of a mind game. It makes Illinois have to work a little bit more.
Yeah, and I
Right?
don't blame him for that. Frankly, you can argue all you want about how much that helps, but I don't care. If you don't have to, why bother?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's all it is. I think you'll see Bazelak run out, take starting reps. You'll see all the inside guys, including follow us on Twitter. I'm sure we'll have people at the
We're
game
gonna have
tweeting.
Charlie Mason,
Char-
our newest contributor. He will be our on boots on the ground at Memorial Stadium on Friday night.
Charlie will be
You'll
tweeting
see
from the
him on
press
this
box.
podcast soon enough.
True. Charlie will be on the ground, or well, not on the ground, above the ground in the
the
press
press
box.
Yeah.
He'll be in the press box tweeting, "Oh, I think Bazelak is taking reps with the starters."
The AJ Barners and the Sean Shivers
Pre-game.
of the world, right?
Yes, exactly. So you'll see that in about 48 to 72 hours. That'll be cleared up. And I don't think it'll be a debate after the first game, as I think he's on another level than Tuttle. Now the question is whether he can survive the year back there, because that's been a problem for all Indiana quarterbacks, especially behind this offensive line and with this offensive line coach. So, like I said, I'm not super confident in IU this game unless the defense plays well. I don't know how you can count on an offense to play well when you don't really know what the offense is gonna look like. So I'm going with the tried and true. It's gonna be a timeout defense. They're gonna play 5 defensive backs. They're gonna throw somebody in at the Husky. It'd be interesting to see who plays there. Is it Josh and Getty? Is it McCullough?
Oh
Are we throwing in the
Oh, man.
freshman in there?
Noah Pierre, of course, is someone
Noah Pierre as
who's got
well.
some running there too. Yeah, and
So
so
who's going to be the superstar of this defense? Because Tywone Mullen we love him to death, right? Because his first 2 years at school he was arguably our best player. Last year did not have a great year, mostly due to injury, right? And through no fault of his own. But this year's his senior year. He's looking to go pro. I would assume, I would hope, to the NFL. He's got to go out there and prove it. Our Ahmad Gardner, right? Played him last year. Didn't allow a single touchdown in his entire career. And it was looking like Tywone Mullen was going to be damn close to that. He only allowed a couple so far through his college career, and then last year had a really bad stretch of games. So can he go back to being that lockdown corner that we all know him to be after the injuries? Be a big help for the rest of the secondary and for what I think is going to be a little bit of a questionable linebacking core to start. So let's see what the defense and the defensive minds in Indiana can do with our superstar.
Yeah, especially looking ahead on the schedule, I can absolutely see Tywone Mullen being a critical force against Western Kentucky, against Cincinnati, against Nebraska, that up-tempo offense. But maybe not so much Friday night. When Indiana's on the other side here trying to attack this Illinois defense, one thing that really stood out from the Illini's 32-point win on Saturday was that they really struggled to stop the Wyoming Cowboys rushing attack.
Interesting.
Wyoming, their starting running back Titus Swen had 17 rushes for 98 yards. And then their quarterback, who only had 30 passing yards on 20 attempts, the quarterback did find a way to run for 76 on 8 carries. And frequently, Wyoming would find a lot of running room on the right side of their offensive line and then use that to run play action and boot the quarterback out the left side and pick up runs that way. Who is the key figure on the right side of the offensive line, you ask, for Indiana? Well, it's Matthew Bedford, and Bedford is ready to have a strong 2022. I've really been impressed by a lot of his comments to the media over the course of the summer. Someone who has taken a leadership role upon himself after winning plenty of Big Ten honors in the 2020 season. He's ready to become a force on the offensive line for IU, where in a couple of months' time you say, oh, actually, Matthew Bedford was someone who really keyed Indiana's revamped, rejuvenated offensive line. Bedford and in connection, Sean Shivers, the running back, are probably going to be the two most important figures for Indiana's offense if they're going to put up a number in the high 20s or in the 30s to beat this Illinois team. And then you think a step ahead. If Indiana runs the ball effectively, whip them with the play action, give Connor Bazelak a lot of time to find guys like Donovan McCulley or Cam Camper or Emery Simmons or DJ Matthews down the field for big gains. That's how we feel this thing will go on offense for Indiana. We'll dive into more in this matchup in just a moment. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports. And I have to shout out, Matt mentioned it a moment ago, what a nice sight it is to see fall sports underway on campus at Indiana University. Indiana men's soccer, who's a top 10 preseason team, went to Clemson, fell short, but you know what? They played their tails off in a really exciting matchup against the Tigers. Indiana fell 3-2 there. You saw the volleyball team take 2 of 3 in their opening weekend. Overall, great to see Wilkinson Hall and Armstrong Stadium here tonight as far as the men's soccer home opener here on this Tuesday night. The women's soccer team's been up and running for a couple of weeks now, and it's been enjoyable to see their progress. Overall, wonderful sight, again, to see the NCAA back in action. It's funny to see that the women's soccer team, by the way, has pulled out 3 straight 0-0 draws to start their year. So
Jose Mourinho would be proud.
Defensive tussles. The Hoosiers take on Indiana State and Notre Dame this week as far as their women's soccer schedule is concerned. Should be fun to see how that plays out. If you do enjoy our show, this part is important. Leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. If you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for The Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at IndianaHQ and at The Hoosier Sound. Matt, there's a lot to talk about as far as this game is concerned. Plenty of big matchups. By the way, that over-under used to be in the 47-48 range. A lot of money has come in, dropping that total down a couple of points here. People expecting a pretty defensive-focused attack from both of these teams. As you look ahead to this game, right, on both sides of the ball for Indiana, which group needs to play their best? Which group needs to be better to really drive an Indiana victory over Illinois? Are you really going to be looking for the offense to take that big step forward after where last year was? Or do you need the defense to be as sharp as possible to stay on top of their game? Which side will be more important to helping Indiana win?
The fun answer is the offense. The real answer is the defense, okay? Because this is an Illinois team that was able to have their way in the trenches with Wyoming. And if they can do that to us, we're going to have a very long Friday night in Memorial Stadium. So I would like to say that the most important thing is that the defense comes out and shuts down Illinois. So the offense has plenty of drives to figure out on live game action how to play. Later down the season, when we play a Cincinnati, when we play an Ohio State, when we play a Michigan State, the defense is still going to be important, but the offense is going to have to score because teams like Ohio State, Michigan, and Cincinnati are going to score on our defense, even no matter how well our defense plays. Right? That's just college football in 2022. But for game one, especially against an Illinois team that's so one-dimensional after one game, the defense is going to have to be out there and really shut them down and put a show of force on, basically, if we're going to win the game. Also, I picked the defense because, like I said before, I actually know what we're going to get out of this defense. I have no idea what we're going to get out of the offense. So I'm going to go with what we know. I'm going to go with defense.
I think that's why I'm going to go with the offense. I really don't know. I look, and this Indiana team, look, it's an exercise in logic. You can't say that this season's offense is going to be bad because last year's offense was bad.
Right.
It's a new offensive coordinator. It's a new system. It's a new quarterback. It's a new group of skill players.
Nathan, I'll argue with you on this one. You can say it's going to be bad because there was one positional coach that we all talked about that was needing to be replaced last year that stayed, and there's one position group on the offense that's more consistent than last year, and it was the worst position group in the offense, and that's the offensive line. So we can say that there's a chance that this offense is bad based off of prerequisite knowledge, and that is that the offensive line was awful last year, completely and utterly underperformed. Am I wrong?
That was last year. So what I'm saying is going into this first game
is still there.
Going into this first game with a new center in Zach Carpenter, right? And by the way, Power 5 pedigree, Michigan transfer.
Okay.
And rock solid certainty in who your tackles are this year. Caleb Jones is gone. He's in an NFL system right now, doing what he can do in the preseason with Green Bay. That's the type of coaching that Caleb Jones needs in order to be a great player. Here and now, you've got two tackles and Luke Haggard at the left side and Matthew Bedford on the right side, who are both on the Reese Senior Bowl watch list. And Haggard specifically, we haven't talked about him because we said Wyoming was attacking the right side of Wyoming's offensive line, the left side of Illinois' defensive line. We haven't talked about him because Haggard's on the other side. Haggard's getting a lot of love right now from the pre-draft NFL scout process. A lot of folks have pulled up his tape in some of Indiana's bigger matchups, tougher matchups this year, even against Ohio State, where Haggard came in and defended his ground against Ohio State's athletic pass rush. Now, look, that was last year. Now, Haggard is going to be a featured part of this Indiana O-line on the left side, Bedford on the right side, Carpenter down the middle, snapping the football. And of course, as we've talked about, in a new system, you can call plays that supports an offensive line that could be a little shaky. Last year, we did not see enough screen passes. We did not see enough play action. We did not see enough mix of run and pass on first down. And finally, with Walt Bell in tow, and you can argue all you want about Walt Bell. And look, if Indiana scores 3 points on Friday, we're going to have conversation again. But they've gained the benefit of doubt from me as far as the work they've put in the preseason and in the summer standpoint. Now, the projection is that they score 24 points. I'm not projecting them to score 48 points. All right. I need to see a number that's in the high 20s. I need to see a number that's in the low 30s. I want to see them come out with energy and effectiveness, and I want to see them come out with a fire in their belly. That's exactly why I'm leaning more into this offense. If Indiana puts up 25, 27. If Indiana puts up 27, they're not losing this game.
All right. I agree to disagree. Not on the 27 points, but I agree to disagree on the fact that I think the offense is more important.
Hey, and it helps by and large too that Illinois isn't Ohio State or Michigan in the front four. They're not Iowa, right? When you look at Indiana's schedule, zooming out, right? Last year, Indiana had Iowa and Minnesota from the West. This year, it's Illinois and Nebraska. A little easier of a break. Looking forward to see how that plays out. This question was our Hoosier Sound weekly podcast poll. You can find it when you go to @the_Hoosier_Sound on Twitter. Make sure you cast your vote if you haven't yet. It will be up until kickoff on Friday night. We asked which side of the ball will be more important in helping Indiana knock off Illinois on Friday. As you mentioned, Matt, it was the cool, fun answer. 70% of the folks right now have voted yes for offense. 30% of those, though, agree with you on the defensive side of the ball. And hey, a few more precincts reporting, perhaps the story will change. I just think overall it'll be fun to see how this plays out. I liked some of the comments. You talked about defense, Matt. Some of the comments that Tom Allen made to the media in his weekly press conference earlier this week. In fact, Allen was asked, something like, what's different now that you are calling the plays? Remember last year, Charlton Warren came in, didn't really work out. When Allen made the decision to go back to calling the defense, here's what he said. Pay attention to this. I'd say at the forefront, it was just a frustration with what we were able to do a year ago. And as you have coaching changes, you feel like if you can solidify the key area that you feel the most expertise in, I guess would be the best way to say it on defense. I wanted to make sure that was right. If we played really well on that side of the football, then we had a chance. I just felt like we got away from some of the things that I believe in, that I want to make sure we're always doing. I definitely feel like I grew as a coach in the 3 years I didn't call it in terms of a head coach. I feel better about all that and game day flow of everything. But to answer your question, it was just more of that's the area I feel is really my strength as a coach. And I wanted to make sure that area was right. If it's not getting done the way you want it done, then you do it yourself because the buck stops with me. Allen's going to put some pressure on himself. Under your expectation, Illinois projects for 21 points. Do you think they meet that number on Friday?
No, I'll tell you this, actually, big brain projection for Friday. I don't think the offense scores a touchdown.
Oh, yikes.
For IU. But I think we win 17-3.
Ooh, take the under, huh?
Yeah, take the under. I think it's a 17-3 victory. I think there's a defensive touchdown, which hasn't happened in a while for Indiana.
I agree. I agree with your call there. I think Indiana does get that defensive touchdown. You're right.
I think there's a special teams touchdown. And then I think the offense gets one really nice, long, methodical drive for a field goal. And Illinois basically does nothing on offense all game. It is going to be classic Big Ten football to watch.
And Illinois is a classic Big Ten football team, and really in the non-Ohio State division of the Big Ten. Illinois, you can see with the Brett Bielema influence, they're not exactly going to light you up with an air show and fast breakneck tempo offense. They love running the ball. They love running it behind their offensive line. But I'm encouraged by the strength in numbers that Indiana has on their defensive line. So as I look at things, I feel like Indiana is going to win this game because of the personnel they have up front. And we haven't even talked about guys like Alfred Ryan. You mentioned Deshaun McCullough was in passing. I think Illinois, I think there's been a conversation, who has the advantage? Is it Illinois, who's got a real live action game under their belt, or Indiana because they haven't shown much on tape? I think it works to Illinois' disadvantage that their first game was against Wyoming, right? And if they drew any false conclusions from that game, it's going to hit them in the teeth when they take on a proper Big Ten defense on Friday night in the Indiana Hoosiers. Largely speaking, if Indiana does what they can do on defense with a healthy squad at all three levels, relatively healthy was the term Tom Allen used, earlier this week. If Indiana comes out with a concerted attack to use the explosiveness of players like Sean Shivers, Jalen Lucas is someone we've heard about quite a bit. Josh Henderson in those short yardage situations, DJ Matthews with the home run hitter down the field, Deshaun McCullough, Anderson Kobe has gotten some love from the coaching staff recently, the transfer in from Tennessee. AJ Barner is someone the coaching staff is very high on tight end.
Yep.
Now we have a conversation here. So when we have everything put together, I actually think Indiana will win 27-15 over the Illinois Fighting Illini. I am saying yes, I think Indiana will win and cover, but I also agree with you on the under piece. So I guess all of you can see where we're going with this as far as the total points scored on Friday night is concerned. We're going to give you our season-long prediction for Indiana football, as well as a Big Ten pick of the week for the opening week 1, technically, set of games. Well, that's coming up. But first, it's time for a social media shout out. And I thought it was interesting. A few days before, about a week before, Indiana's football season starts, and already with some fall sports underway, Indiana University announced that Hoosier athletes have entered a partnership, a name, image, and likeness initiative with the IU Maurer School of Law. The school has set up a Center for Intellectual Property Research, as you see more and more NIL deals agreed to across the different student athletic sports that you see at Indiana University. So it makes sense on the surface. You have your student athletes work with the law school to make sure that no one's getting in trouble as far as NIL is concerned. How about Mark Janis, a Maurer School of Law professor and the director of the Center for Intellectual Property Research? He said, our goal is to serve students who are negotiating NIL deals that might involve significant rights of the student, but aren't likely to generate enough revenue to justify hiring expensive specialized legal counsel. So how about that?
He's my sports law professor at IU.
Oh, well, shucks. Anything else you want to add about that?
No, I think that's about it.
There you go. All right. Wonderful. I mean, it makes sense on the surface, right? Indiana's athletic department working with the Indiana Law School, Maurer School of Law, perfect partnership there. As NIL now goes into its second year, Indiana's taking the correct steps to make sure no funny business happens. Matt, it was a 2-10 year last season for Indiana. The previous year, IU went 6-2. The previous year, Indiana went 8-5. Overall, Tom Allen made an interesting comment to the media a couple of weeks ago saying, hey, we're about to find out whether the outlier was 2020, the outlier was 2021. IU's got 12 games coming up this year, normal season. The projection for Indiana's win total, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, is flat at 4. As you see this season develop with 3 games where Indiana will be a favorite at the start, and then very possibly 9 games where Indiana will be an underdog after. How many wins do you think the Hoosiers pull off? And do you see any big upsets Indiana gets? Or do you see any games where Indiana gets upset in this upcoming year?
I think IU's looking at a 3-win season. And it's going to be a tough one to watch for folks, because I think it's a 3-win season, but the 3 wins coming in the first 3 games. Yeah. I think we beat Illinois. We beat the rails off of Idaho. We're going to have a nail biter with Western Kentucky. And Western Kentucky team, by the way, that's completely different than last year's team.
Way different.
They basically lost what made them
NFL quarterback, really strong wide
receivers. Yeah. So they lost a lot.
Really good pass rusher too. Anyway, yeah.
Yes, they lost a lot. Completely different from what we saw last year. And then it starts with Cincinnati. We travel to Cincinnati. I put my entire life's earnings. We are not winning that game. Nebraska at home, which probably
at Nebraska.
I mean Nebraska's home. Nebraska in Lincoln, probably I would say on this list, arguably the most emotionally charged game on the list. That includes the Purdue game. So I think at this point, Nebraska is going to be Scott Frost. You have to win this game or you're fired. And it's going to be IU on the road.
But you know what? Just to say one thing on that, if the athletic department is making a hire or fire decision based on what Nebraska does at home against Indiana, doesn't that kind of tell the story?
Absolutely does, but I mean Nebraska.
How much confidence should you have in the athletic department if they're deciding whether to keep their coach based on a mid-season home result like that?
I mean, the weird thing for Nebraska though is like Scott Frost he had less experience, much less experience than Mike Woodson, but he was supposed to be what Mike Woodson was to Nebraska football.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Nebraska kept bringing in people who were good coaches, but Nebraska was not their alma mater, and they kept trying to bring in new ideas to try to get Nebraska football back to the 90s. And Nebraska couldn't figure it out, so they brought in the guy that was part of the reason why they were good in the 90s. Yeah. Brought in Scott Frost, who was also coincidentally doing really good things at UCF in the short time he was there. Yeah. And he's done nothing at Nebraska. Actually, less than nothing.
I mean, to carry out the analogy, he's turned into a worse version of Archie Miller.
Exactly, and so I'm very, very interested as a neutral to see what the heck goes on with Nebraska this year. But I'm telling you, that game is going to be very emotionally charged, one way or the other. Nebraska could completely crumble. We could get that fourth win there, or they could come out and blow the doors off of us and have a very interesting end of the season, playing for the livelihood of their head coach. Then we have Michigan at home. I think that's homecoming. Mm-hmm. We're gonna get shellacked. I don't even think that game's gonna be close. Maryland, I would say, is the closest game out of the remainder of the games where we could get a win. But the problem is it's in Maryland.
Nope, and it's in Bloomington.
No, sorry, it's in Bloomington. I'm reading the schedule all wrong. It's in Bloomington. We should be able to keep that game close. Rutgers on the road, we lose. Penn State at home, I don't think we repeat 2020. I think we lose that. Ohio State on the road, just mark it as an L. You're not beating Ohio State. We're not beating Michigan State on the road either. And then Purdue at home to finish the year. I think this Purdue team's actually going to be decent. And at this point, it would be really fun if we could ruin their season and take a Big Ten West title out of their hands, because they have a very good chance of actually winning the West with the schedule they have. And they play a very easy Big Ten schedule. So as long as Jeff Brom doesn't do Jeff Brom things and lose to random teams, Purdue should be looking to possibly be in contention for the Big Ten title game. So Indiana could play spoiler on November 25th there.
Hey, Matt. You know what, Matt? Indiana's making a bowl game this season.
You are on some large
Indiana's making a bowl game this season, Matt. Look.
All right, who are we beating?
3-0 start, right? 3-0 start. Yeah. The win that I have on my radar that no one has, Indiana is going to go into Nippert Stadium and knock off the Cincinnati Bearcats in week 4 to continue their great start to 4-0 after Cincinnati, a team that lost a ton from last year, is going to be a little bit deflated given they're going to lose to Arkansas in week 1 on Saturday. And I feel like Indiana, who played better than Cincinnati all day last year until Micah McFadden got ejected, and even after that, Indiana had good stretches of play. I think Indiana is going to have an upset win over the Cincinnati Bearcats in week 4. I have IU knocking off Maryland and Bloomington, winning at Rutgers, and beating Purdue at home. So I actually have 7 wins on my schedule for this Indiana football team. I don't have Indiana winning at Nebraska.
Okay.
I, for some reason, feel like I don't know. I don't see it happening. That's just, I don't know why. If Indiana wins it, great. If they don't, whatever. I'm not budgeting a win for that. But if you want to put it this way, if you don't think Indiana wins at Cincinnati, maybe they split that 2-game trip and win at Nebraska, if that's the way you want to look at it. But what I need to underscore here is how valuable a fast start will be to this Indiana football team. I don't think folks are giving enough credence to that when they evaluate and analyze and predict how Indiana is going to do this year. It was interesting to see former Indiana offensive lineman Britt Beery post about this on social media, where he said setting the tone week one against Illinois is the focus, and the guys know that. Getting off to a great start can be the difference in a season. I can tell you this with the confidence after the last season I was a part of it. Beery was on Indiana 2020, he was on Indiana 2021. And so you can see what exactly he's talking about. I think you can argue that in 2020 against Penn State, if the review goes differently and Michael Penix is ruled short and Penn State wins, Penn State goes on, has a great season in 2020, and Indiana doesn't. And when I'm looking at Illinois in week one, I'm looking for Indiana not only win, you saw I've had this team winning by double digits. Tom Allen has shown me a lot. Look, I'm covering this football team on a weekly basis. And when you're in the same room as Tom Allen, you can see why players gravitate towards him. And Tom Allen doesn't need anyone defending him. But Indiana has had more success in the 5 years under him, thanks to 2019, thanks to 2020, than Indiana fans have seen in a long time. That 2019 season has gone lost. No one remembers that Indiana won 8 games and was toe-to-toe with an SEC team in Tennessee. And Indiana probably should have won that bowl game. It was a huge collapse at the end by the Hoosiers. All I'm saying is this is a team, when I compare it to the crap I saw under Bill Lynch and under Kevin Wilson, where if you go back and watch Indiana football under Kevin Wilson, the offense put up points. The defense could not tackle a turtle. All right. And all I'm saying is this team plays competitively. They play enthusiastically. And all it takes, and we kind of talk about this with IU men's basketball too. For IU men's basketball, is all it takes for Indiana men's basketball to be an average 3-point shooting team. For Indiana football, we're saying all it takes is for them to be an average offense. Just be average. It's all we're asking. And I think if Indiana gets off to a good start here in the first 3 weeks of the season, you'll see that carry through over the course of the rest of the year.
I like I said, you can't lose one of these first 3 games.
You can't. And if Indiana loses on Friday, I'm out. You cannot lose this game.
Yeah. Is it already a must win for Indiana, these first 3 games?
100%. And I know there's always that disclaimer, like technically it's not a must win. You're right. Indiana still has 11 more games left after this. But as we use the term must win, this is a must win against Illinois.
There's also no excuses. Okay.
No.
There's absolutely no excuses. This is a new offensive staff. I get that. It's the first game. I get that. But the offensive coordinator is a former Division I head coach.
Yeah.
He's also been an offensive coordinator at other places before.
Maryland, Florida State.
There's a QB coming in that has starting experience. You have hidden your depth chart all summer so that Illinois can be off kilter in this football game. There is no excuses. You are pulling every trick in the book to have a comfortable victory against Illinois. You have to go out there and actually do it. If you do not do that, there is no defending you anymore.
There's not.
There's no defending. You are what you are week one, and that is either a winner or a loser. If you win the game, my confidence is increasingly growing as the wins stack up until we get our doors blown off by Cincinnati and Nippert. But I will say, I think Idaho will be comfortable. I think Western Kentucky will be comfortable. I could very much see this being a 2020-esque season, like Nathan said.
Week one is where Friday night is where it's at.
Yeah, and it's actually no, seriously, it's a must-win game for Indiana, which terrifies me because I'm not the most confident Indiana fan in the offensive staff.
No one's confident. Yeah.
Nobody's confident, but I would say I'm in the bottom 10% of confidence levels for this staff. That's why I said the defense needs to be the hard carry in this game. So again, let's see what they bring on Friday. We both predicted a win. I predicted a very ugly victory. Nathan predicted a much more fun victory. I would prefer that Nathan is correct and we get 7 wins this season. However, call me pessimistic, but I think we're getting 3.
I mean, you know what's great about this though? No one, if anyone tells you they know what's going to happen this season, they're wrong. If anyone's telling you Indiana is a crap team, they're wrong. Right. If anyone's telling you Indiana is a great team, they're wrong. Because the way college football and college basketball especially work nowadays compared to even 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, year to year changes are as volatile and as unpredictable as ever, right? You think about that Michigan State team that was so bad in 2020 for football. 2021, they're in the New Year Six conversation the whole way, right? Transfer portal, Heisman running back, randomly, new quarterback working through the offense there. Michigan State became a great team. Michigan, horrible in 2020, 2021. Yeah, Michigan, different tier level program, but rode it to the college football playoff, which no one expected. Last year, preseason, Michigan was expected to be worse than Indiana. So what this all comes down to saying is the year-to-year stuff, especially when Indiana's got a new OC, a new DC, a new QB, a whole new other group of players. If it's difficult for Indiana to know what they have, it's difficult for their opponents. That's for sure. And I can't wait to see how that plays out on Friday against the Illini. Now, Matt, the last thing we do before we wrap up here, every Big Ten team in action this weekend. Guys, this is the first of a weekly series that we're going to do on our podcast during football season. We did it last year. We're going to continue it this season. We're going to look at the whole Big Ten slate, and we're going to pick a game against the spread, as well as an upset, straight upset, that we really like on the Big Ten slate of games this upcoming week. It's wonderful that thanks to non-conference scheduling, although there is one Big Ten game between each other, a lot of options to pick from. Now, I did mention earlier that every Big Ten team was in action this weekend. That's not correct, actually. I take that back. Northwestern has a bye week because of their game last week. But as we dive in, and I look at the different favorites and the underdogs against the spread, the one pick against the spread that really stands out to me is Penn State. And I like Penn State to cover 3 on the road in West Lafayette against the Boilermakers. I think Purdue, while understandably there's a lot of positive energy around their quarterback and Aiden O'Connell, who can really throw the football, I think it's going to be tough for them to overcome some of the lost guys like David Bell on that offense, guys like Bell. I'm forgetting the name of the other receiver that also moved on. I'll pull that in a second. But they're down 2 key skill players. Milton Wright is the player I was looking for. They're down 2 key receivers on their offense, and they're bringing in Charlie Jones and Tyrone Tracy from Iowa. I just think Penn State has a lot more in their arsenal than Purdue does. And that atmosphere is going to be great for sure. But over the course of 60 minutes, I think Penn State's really going to wear Purdue down in that Penn State way. They're going to be able to run the football, have Sean Clifford beat them on some key easy throws. I have Purdue covering 3 in West Lafayette on Thursday night. Matt, as you look at the different favorites and the underdogs on the slate, what's one pick against the spread you like over the course of this upcoming weekend?
I call me crazy, but Michigan's favored by 30.5. I think they cover that against Colorado State.
Yeah. Understandable.
I think they completely blow the doors off of them. And since it's week 1, they're going to have fun. I could see them winning like 45-0, 56-7 or something like that. So I think they covered the spread there pretty decently. And upset pick, right?
Yeah, upset pick. I'll give you mine first.
Okay,
right? Go ahead. I'll give you mine first. Guys, look. North Dakota is going into Lincoln and beating Nebraska on Saturday. All right. It's just look. I'm sorry. I understand Nebraska got a lot of look, they got a lot of problems. North Dakota is going into Lincoln and beating Nebraska on Saturday. I don't know if you can even find odds for that game. Stay tuned. It'll probably be up Friday night or early Saturday. It's a 3:30 start Eastern time on Saturday afternoon. If you can get your hands on North Dakota winning straight up at Nebraska, don't bet the house on it. All right. Bet a lampshade. All right. But I've got North Dakota winning in upset fashion in Lincoln on Saturday afternoon.
So I was gonna kind of be in the same boat as you, and I was actually gonna go San Diego. I was gonna go South Dakota State.
Yeah, it's the Dakotas.
But the Dakotas, but I'm not actually gonna do that. I'm gonna go with the safe upset bet, which is I'm gonna go with Rutgers to beat Boston College in Boston College. Boston College is currently favored by a touchdown right now. I actually have a ton of faith in this Rutgers team for once. I think they're actually pretty good. They're multidimensional on offense and defense. And usually
special teams, their punter is the best punter in college football, Adam Korsak. Rutgers ain't going to score a touchdown every drive. So when the punter does come on the field, Korsak does a great job. They did lose Isaiah Pacheco from last year. They did lose Bo Melton from last season. However, still Noah Vedral at QB1, and he's someone that's pretty dangerous. Aaron Cruikshank, Wisconsin transfer, a lot of speed outside for them. Taj Harrison coming transfer from Syracuse, who played with Illinois quarterback Tommy DeVito in the ACC. Now Taj Harris at Rutgers. I like that.
I like that Rutgers team. So give me Rutgers to go into one of the Northeastern Catholic schools and show them who invented football. So
fun fact: BC actually beat Connor Bazelak in Missouri last year in the non-conference slate in Massachusetts. So now it looks like Rutgers will get the shot that Missouri had last season. Matt, as we wind down here, any closing thoughts? Talked a lot. Look, can't understate how big the season opener is because, a few years ago, right, Ohio State came to Bloomington. It's a primetime game and all that, but you're always budgeting for an Ohio State loss. This is a conference game at home, bright lights that Indiana's favored in. Any closing thoughts you have as we wind down tonight on this Tuesday night?
I know I sounded pretty pessimistic on this podcast. If you're listening and you got slightly less excited about Indiana football this season, please don't get less excited. Be excited. It's fun. Football's back. I think Nathan said 7 wins. My brain says that's possible. I wouldn't put my money on it, but I think it is possible. And I was thinking of a bit of a metaphor, a bit of an example. I think there's an 80% chance that I am correct and we have a terrible season. But there's a 20% chance that Nathan's right and we have a fantastic season. And if that was a scratch off and I had a 20% chance of winning, I'd buy that scratch off. So I like what Nathan's putting out there into the universe. I don't believe it until I see it. And that's specifically catered to the offense. I'm not going to believe in it till I see it. I like the players. I think it's going to be fun to watch, whether it's good or bad. It's going to be, entertaining at the very least. But, week 1, they have a lot to prove, and I would love for them to prove me wrong.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, in order for Indiana to hit on that scratch off ticket, look, pay attention to the offensive tackle position in this game for Indiana, because if there's any semblance of success IU has this year, while it's great to talk about the quarterback and it's great to talk about Sean Shire, it's great to talk about DJ Matthews and Donovan McCulley and where this thing can go as far as the skill players, pay attention to Luke Haggard and Matthew Bedford. Haggard is number 70. Matthew Bedford is number 76. Haggard on the left, Bedford on the right. If they're getting blown off the ball against Illinois, there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of concern for this team the rest of the year. But what I'm expecting is those 2 tackles paving the way for those explosive runs, for Shivers, for Jalen Lucas, for Josh Henderson when he gets snaps. And then we can start talking about an Indiana offense going back to scoring in the 20s and the 30s and not in the single digits. We talked about our new contributor, Charlie. He put together an article for Indiana HQ that highlighted the areas that Indiana's got to focus on in order to beat Illinois on Friday. You can head over to indianahq.com to see what Charlie wrote. It was really well done. And I can't wait to see Indiana put that to practice in that first game. But that about wraps it up for our 260th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next week.
Peace and love. Go Hoosiers.